Need to make that sit up a bit higher in there. So what we can do, wedge in this rock. Now we need to start working on our skeleton around this. We've got some sticks here. Now, preferably, if you can anchor them into the ground. So if you've got a digging stick while you're doing this, just something to, doesn't have to be a deep hole, just something to roughly keep it in place. Now this is where, get out fine twine, our snake vine. Fix that on. Okay, so that's not going anywhere, and it doesn't have to be any better than that. It's a temporary emergency shelter. Keep adding pieces onto this on both sides, and you can see I'm using any of the old, where there have been branches coming off this log, I'm using those natural features of the timber to help reinforce the structure. That's why I'm leaning these into it. Now, once we've got a series of these running vertically on our verticals, we can start working in some horizontals as well. Lantana is fantastic for that. It's got that flexibility and it's lightweight. Simply start bringing them through in that sort of over, under, over, under. Okay, so we're coming along with our shelter here. As you can see, it's, you know, doesn't look like anything too flash. It's a really basic structure, but that's all you need. Something that's going to support the thatching that we're going to put on, and it's the thatching that we put on which is going to be the real shelter. Now, because I'm using it, I'm not putting it straight back into my pouch, but always remember where you put down your tools. A, so you don't lose it, and B, so you don't go and kneel down on a knife blade or something like that. So I'm going to keep that very handy. It's great that it's bright silver, it's a bit hard to miss. Okay, well it's starting to look a bit overcast, and I'm really happy with that as a basic structure, and I'm ready to start thatching it. I want to get myself in there before the weather turns. So, while I've been building this, my lovely assistant Koa has been off collecting this. This is Crofton weed. It's a really common wayside plant. This is perfect for what we want to do. So, keeping the roots on, you might just want to shake off a bit of the soil and stuff so it doesn't rain down on you. And keep it together as a clump, because we want this to be really dense to keep the elements out. That's most of the way there. Now I could have done this using so many different types of foliage. I could have used ferns. Ferns are fantastic, and in fact I will collect up some ferns to line my floor. They're really comfortable. But when you're dealing with ferns, before you collect them for use, turn the fronds over and look to see if there are any little raised red or black bumps on the bottom of it. They're spores. That's the fern trying to reproduce, and they can be really irritant on the skin. So that's clean, we can use that. But if it did have all the spores on it, I'd probably not use it at that time of year. To know whether it's ready or not, come around to the other side, and this is really important. Get inside and see where the light's coming through. So from inside, we can still see there's lots and lots of light getting through. So I'd be working back and forth, going on the outside, adding thatching, coming back inside, looking for light coming through, and eventually no light will penetrate through that, and we'll have a lovely comfortable shelter. So that little fella there, he's standing there at the entrance to his little shelter, and he's pretty protective of it, as we would be of ours. Now, that's a great reason why if I was actually staying out here in the bush, I wouldn't have built the shelter right here. We've got this whopping great bull ant on the march, and I'm sure the rest of his family's lurking somewhere inside there. So that's one of those things you've really got to be aware of. When we started making the space, and I was using a stick and clearing the area and talking about some of the hazards, but really take a good look at, you know, if you're using a tree for a lean-to, have a look around the base of it, because lots of creatures like to use trees and the root systems in particular for their homes. It's really important to also look at what your surrounding foliage is, that you don't have big trees there that could potentially drop branches off you. Australian eucalypts are called widow makers for good reason. They do have a habit of dropping whopping big branches when the wind comes up, and you don't want to be underneath one when it comes down. With the bull ants, I may not have noticed that. See, here he still is here, very intrigued. He's just that little guard on duty, but bull ants really come out at night. They're a night hunter. So unless you do really pay close attention, you could easily miss that as a threat and find that they're all in your sleeping bag with you in the middle of the night. And, you know, that's just something you don't want to have happen.
I love it when I can build something that and use it and it goes back to the earth. It's a beautiful feeling. When I make a structure like that and sleep in it, what people have forgotten is that when you make something from your own hands, especially like you're going to sleep in it, your dreams become a lot clearer and a lot more meaningful than sleeping in anything else. Sleeping outside on the ground, great, watching the stars. But if you need shelter, yeah. I think these are things that people have forgotten about, how much joy there is in doing things for yourself from nature and watching it all go back, watching the cycles and being part of that is crucial. Yeah, so when I come into the bush, I'm always carrying a hammock and a mosquito net and one tarp. But if there's two of you hiking together and you each have a hoochie tarp, you can snap them together and build a shelter like this, which is big enough for two people. First thing I do when I find a spot where I want to build it is get off the ground. And so I build a platform up there, and then I put an A-frame over it and put my hoochie tarps over it. Now I've got a dry space. And then I can start working on the shelter, and even if it's raining, I can keep working on it. So the basic structure, like when I make my platform there, is made out of forked sticks. And there's heaps of forked sticks in the bush. I always look for ones that are already dead, not living trees. And just find that fork. With that A-frame there, that's what supports it. I have one there. It's like this. The beam is supported by two forked sticks. Alright? And in the shelter, I've used heaps of forked sticks. Every corner of the platform is a forked stick, so that can come through like that. And then I can run a stick over here to another forked stick and make like a square. And then I fill in the top. And that's the platform. And then over that platform I put an A-frame. So more forked sticks. Once I've got my platform up, and all the uprights are up, all the forked sticks, then I start triangulating it. You just take a stick and run it from one corner to the bottom. And then just make an X across there. And then that stiffens everything up. That structure is really, really strong. I can't even push it. You know? Very strong. I could get up on that platform and jump up and down. And then I start thatching it. So at the moment what I've got is banana leaves, because we've got a few a few groves of bananas up here, and never used them before, but they're working out really nicely. Normally a thatch is with the leaf, you take it by the base of the leaf and you bunch them all up and hang them like that. But because these fibers are running this way, it's going to work like this, horizontally on the shack. So what I do first, is cut it right down the middle so that I have two different sets of fibers to work with. And because the banana is about 90% water, I get rid of some of that water just by shaving it. Whoops. That's pretty. Just shaving that off like that. And that just gets rid of the water. I don't need it anyway. And it'll just mold if you stick it up on your shack there. So what I've been doing is I get a few of these together, and then I'll tie them together on the ground and then lay them up on my shack there. It's really important to get off the ground when you're in the bush. That gets you up away off the ground, gets you away from snakes. Only two snakes in Australia that are toxic and dangerous climb, and they live out in the middle of the desert. They climb the mulga trees and things like that. But here on this side of the Great Divide, none of our toxic snakes climb. And I'll tell you what, it's not fun to wake up with any kind of toxic snake under your bag or in your bag or curled up in your clothes. One time I was out in the bush when I first got to Australia, and there was no moonlight or starlight, and it was really, really dark, and I kept smelling this really intense reptile, but it wasn't much I could do. I just tried to stay super still because I knew this snake, whatever it was really close to me. I didn't want to roll over on it or something. So it was a pretty horrific night. I didn't get much sleep. And first light, as soon as I could see anything, I carefully got out of my bag. And as I did that, a death adder crawled out from underneath my pillow, my clothes that were wadded up as my pillow. It was sleeping under my head all night long, a death adder. So I made a point to go to the libraries and get all the books on snakes and read up on them and ask everyone that I met that grew up in Australia about snakes and stuff, and that's what I learned. Get off the ground. So that's why we get off the ground, build it up off the ground. Also, you get away from leeches, you get away from ticks, you get more of an airflow coming through your camp. That's really important if it's raining. If you're right on the ground, you're also a lot more apt to get water flowing down the surface of the ground and through your camp. And also, yeah, if you do have a watertight camp right on the ground, there's a lot more mold and things like that can occur. Yeah, you know, when you're looking for shelter, the first thing I do is actually look for a natural situation that I can just enhance a little bit and make it a bit more tight. But look at this, man. That would totally keep you dry in the rain. That's so perfect. I want to get up on there. Check it out. Well, the first thing you got to do is check for bull ant nests and other kinds of critters, because you don't want to move in with them. Wake up in the middle of the night with bites all over you. So I don't see anything, but yeah, if I needed an emergency shelter, this would be so cool. I could actually lay down right here. It'd be a bit at an angle, but hey, wait out a storm and something like this. Perfect. And if I wanted to, I could actually block that off. Just go get some sticks and thatch that up. I could make this into a little house if I wanted to.
So what I want to talk about here is how you'd make a solar still so you can collect and purify water using simple foliage and a few simple items when you're out in the bush. Scrub turkey's come along and already started doing work for me in this lovely sunny spot here, so I'm going to take advantage of what it's done, save a bit of my energy, and I'm going to start making my hole. So the first thing to remember when you're making your hole is that you've got to be able to get a lot of light into it. So you're making it twice as wide as you are deep. So, kind of cheating using a tool here, but you could use a digging stick or something like that.